You know what really irritates me? When I spend weeks researching a television, reading reviews, watching comparison videos, and then I finally pull the trigger on what everyone says is the best TV in its class, only to discover it's actually terrible in real-world use. That's exactly what happened when I decided to test 7 of the most highly rated televisions on the market right now in early 2026. I bought them with my own money, set them up in my living room, and spent 2 solid weeks putting them through realistic, everyday scenarios. And here's the shocking part. 3 of these so-called top-rated TVs were absolute garbage. Before we get into which ones failed and why, hit that subscribe button and drop a like on this video. And I'm genuinely curious, which TV are you using right now, and what problems are you facing with it? Leave a comment below because your experience might help someone else figure out what to avoid. Why I actually did this testing. Let me explain why I went through this entire process. I'd been using the same television for about 8 years, and it was starting to show its age. The smart features were sluggish, it didn't support the latest gaming features for my PlayStation 5, and I just wanted something bigger and better. So I started doing research the same way anyone would. I went to the usual review sites, watched YouTube comparisons, read customer reviews on Amazon and Best Buy, and checked out ratings on places like RTings. What I noticed immediately frustrated me. Almost every TV released in the past 2 years had glowing reviews. Everything was rated 4.5 stars or higher. Every model was described as offering incredible value or amazing picture quality. It felt like nobody was willing to actually criticize anything or point out real flaws that would matter to regular people. Professional reviewers would mention things like peak brightness measurements, but they wouldn't tell you whether the TV was actually pleasant to use every day or whether the image processing created weird artifacts during normal content. So I decided to do something different. I picked 7 TVs that were consistently rated as top choices in early 2026, bought all 7 of them, and tested them myself under realistic conditions. Not in a lab with test patterns, but in my actual living room with actual content that normal people watch. Sports, movies, streaming shows, gaming, YouTube videos, the stuff you'd actually use a TV for. And what I discovered was eye-opening. The 7 TVs I tested. Let me walk you through which models I chose and why. I wanted to cover different price ranges and different technologies, so I picked a mix of OLED, mini LED, and standard LED models. I also focused on sizes between 55 and 65 inches since that's what most people shopping right now are considering. Every one of these had excellent ratings and strong recommendations from multiple sources. The first TV was the LG C3 OLED in 65 inches. This is last year's flagship from LG, and it's been heavily discounted recently. I picked it up for about $1,400, which is roughly $500 less than it was selling for just a few months ago. The LG C3 uses OLED technology, which means every pixel produces its own light, giving you perfect blacks and infinite contrast. It's been praised everywhere for gaming performance, with 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, 120Hz refresh rate, and support for all the variable refresh rate technologies. On paper and according to reviews, this should be nearly perfect. The second TV was the Samsung QN90C in 65 inches, which I got for around $1,600 after a recent price drop of about $400. This is Samsung's mini LED flagship from 2024, and it uses quantum dot technology combined with hundreds of local dimming zones to deliver extremely high brightness and strong HDR performance. Every review praised its ability to handle bright rooms and its peak brightness levels that supposedly blow away OLED. It's also rated highly for gaming and uses Samsung's Tizen operating system. The third was the TCL QM8 in 65 inches, which cost me about $1,100 after a significant price cut. TCL has been gaining serious respect in the TV market over the past few years, and the QM8 is their premium mini LED model with quantum dots, over 1,000 local dimming zones, and extremely high brightness capabilities. It's frequently called the best value in the entire TV market and gets compared favorably to models that cost twice as much. It runs Google TV as the operating system, fourth was the Hisense U8K in 65 inches at around $900 after recent discounts. Like the TCL, this is a mini LED model with quantum dots and impressive specifications for the price. Hisense has been aggressive about offering flagship-level features at mid-range prices, and the U8K is supposed to be their sweet spot model that delivers premium performance without the premium cost. Reviews consistently call it a value champion. The fifth TV was the Sony X90L in 65 inches, which I paid about $1,300 for. Sony takes a different approach than most manufacturers. They don't chase the highest brightness numbers or the most dimming zones. Instead, they focus on image processing, motion handling, and color accuracy. The X90L is a full-array LED with local dimming, but it's not mini LED. Sony's reputation is built on picture quality that respects what directors intended, and this model is their mainstream offering that's supposed to deliver that Sony quality at a more accessible price. Sixth was the Samsung S90D OLED in 55 inches, which I got for about $1,200. This is Samsung's 2025 OLED using a QD-OLED panel, which combines OLED's perfect blacks with quantum dot color technology. It's been called one of the best values in OLED right now, especially after recent price drops of around $600 from its launch price. The QD-OLED technology is supposed to deliver brighter, more vibrant colors than traditional OLED panels. And finally, the seventh TV was the LG C3 OLED in 55 inches at about $1,400, down from over $1,800 at launch. This is LG's current flagship OLED for 2024, using their brighter EVO panel technology and their latest Alpha 9 processor. It's basically an updated version of the C3 with some refinements and improvements, and it's supposed to represent the best that LG offers in mainstream OLED technology. The testing process. Here's how I actually tested these TVs. I set them up one at a time in my living room, which has windows that let in moderate natural light during the day but can be darkened in the evening. This is a typical real-world environment, not a perfectly controlled dark theater room. I calibrated each TV using its built-in presets. I didn't hire a professional calibrator or use specialized equipment because most people don't do that. I used the Filmmaker Mode or Cinema Mode when available, and I adjusted settings based on what looked good to my eyes. I watched the same content on each TV to make comparisons fair. I watched several episodes of prestige dramas with careful cinematography, some action movies with lots of dark scenes and bright explosions, live sports including both daytime and nighttime games, nature documentaries with vibrant colors, and YouTube videos at various quality levels. I also spent significant time gaming on each TV, playing both fast-paced shooters and slower cinematic games to test motion handling and input lag. I paid attention to things that matter in daily use. How easy was the setup process? How intuitive was the interface? How quickly did apps load? Did the TV stay cool or did it get warm during extended use? How were the viewing angles if you sat off to the side? Did motion look smooth and natural or did it have that weird soap opera effect? Were there any distracting artifacts or issues that only became apparent after watching for a while? And critically, did the TV actually deliver on what the reviews promised? The 3 complete failures. Now let's talk about the 3 TVs that disappointed me so badly that I genuinely consider them garbage despite their high ratings. The first failure was the Hisense U8K. I really wanted to like this TV because the price to performance ratio looked incredible, and every review site praised it as the value king. But in actual use, this TV has a fatal flaw nobody talks about. The blooming around bright objects on dark backgrounds is absolutely terrible. When you watch a movie with dark scenes like any space film or nighttime sequences, bright elements create these huge halos of light that bleed into the surrounding darkness. Streetlights look like they're surrounded by fog. Stars have massive glowing circles around them. White text on black backgrounds is nearly unreadable because of the halo effect. I understand that all LED and mini LED TVs have some blooming, but the U8K is egregiously bad at controlling this. And here's what makes it worse. This mostly happens with real content, not with test patterns that reviewers use. When you pull up a test slide with a white dot on black, the U8K actually doesn't look that bad. But when you watch an actual movie with complex scenes, the algorithm gets confused and creates distracting artifacts everywhere. I spent 3 days trying different settings, turning off various processing features, adjusting the local dimming algorithm, and nothing fixed it. Some reviewers did mention blooming, but described it as minor or acceptable for the price. Let me be clear, it's not minor and it's not acceptable. It fundamentally ruins dark content, which is a huge portion of prestige television and movies. The second failure was the Samsung QN90C. And this genuinely shocked me because Samsung has such a strong reputation. The problem is the aggressive image processing that you cannot fully disable. Samsung applies heavy-handed sharpening, noise reduction, and motion smoothing to basically everything. And even when you switch to Filmmaker Mode or turn off all the processing options, you can still see it happening. What this means in practice is that film content looks weirdly artificial and overprocessed. Faces have unnatural sharpness that makes skin textures look harsh. There's a subtle soap opera effect that never fully goes away. And noise in darker scenes gets smoothed out in a way that removes fine details, making everything look plasticky and fake. The irony is that the QN90C can get incredibly bright, and the colors are vibrant, and in many ways the technical performance is impressive. But technical performance doesn't matter if the image processing ruins the actual picture. I watched the same movie scenes on the QN90C and then on the Sony X90L. And despite the Sony having lower peak brightness, the Sony looked dramatically better because it respected the original content. The third failure was the Samsung S90D OLED. Now, before everyone jumps in the comments, let me explain exactly what the problem is. The S90D uses a QD-OLED panel, and QD-OLED has a specific weakness: terrible reflection handling and performance in bright rooms. The panel has a coating that creates a magenta or purple tint on reflections. If you have windows or overhead lights, you'll see these weird colored reflections on the screen that are incredibly distracting. During daytime viewing, the panel also struggles to overcome ambient light, so the picture looks washed out. Many reviews mention that QD-OLED doesn't handle bright rooms well, but they frame it as a minor trade-off for better color saturation. What they don't emphasize is that most people's living rooms have windows and lights, and most people watch TV during the day sometimes. For those use cases, the S90D is genuinely bad. If you have a dedicated dark theater room, it's probably excellent. But in a normal living room, you're going to be disappointed. I compared the S90D directly to the LG C3, which uses traditional OLED, and the difference was stark. The LG handled reflections much better and maintained better visibility in bright conditions. Yes, the S90D had slightly more vibrant colors in perfect conditions, but that doesn't matter if you can't actually use the TV comfortably most of the time. The 4 TVs that actually delivered, the LG C3 OLED, genuinely impressed me and might be the best. The picture quality is outstanding with perfect blacks, excellent color accuracy, and great HDR performance. The interface is smooth running web OS. The gaming features work flawlessly, and it handles both dark room and bright room viewing reasonably well. Though like all OLEDs, it's best in darker environments. The main limitation is peak brightness. It can't get as bright as high-end mini-LED TVs. But for most content in most viewing situations, it's excellent. And at current prices around $1,400 for 65 inches, this represents exceptional value for OLED technology. The LG C4 is basically a refined version of the C3 with a brighter panel and better processing. If you're buying new, the extra cost over the C3 is hard to justify. But if you find them at similar prices, the C4 is excellent. The Sony X90L was the surprise star of this entire test. On paper, it's not as impressive. It doesn't have mini LED or quantum dots, the peak brightness is moderate, and it costs more than models with seemingly better specifications. But in actual viewing, the X90L consistently delivered the most natural, film-like pleasing image of any TV I tested. The motion handling is superb without any artificial soap opera effect. The upscaling of lower quality content is noticeably better. The colors are accurate without being oversaturated. And the picture just looks right in a way that's hard to quantify, but obvious when you see it. This is what Sony does well. They focus on the actual viewing experience rather than chasing specification battles. The TCL QM8 is the best value in mini LED technology. Yes, it has some blooming and dark scenes, less than the Hisense, but more than OLED. But it gets incredibly bright, has vibrant quantum dot colors, and delivers excellent performance for the price. The Google TV interface is smooth and well designed, and at current prices around $1,100 for 65 inches, you're getting flagship level specifications at mid-range pricing. The QM8 is ideal if you have a bright room and watch a lot of HDR content or sports. Understanding why reviews get it wrong. Here's something that became clear to me. Professional TV reviews often evaluate different things than what actually matters in daily use. Professional reviewers are measuring peak brightness, color gamut coverage, and contrast ratios with specialized equipment in controlled environments. And all of that is valuable technical information, but it doesn't always correlate with whether a TV is actually pleasant to live with. The Hisense U8K measures well on brightness and local dimming zone count, so it gets good scores. But those measurements don't capture how distracting the blooming is during real content. The Samsung QN90C measures extremely well on specifications, but measurements don't reveal how aggressive the image processing is. The Samsung S90D gets praised for its color volume, but reviewers don't emphasize enough how limiting the bright room performance is. Meanwhile, the Sony X90L doesn't win specification battles, so it gets good but not great reviews, even though it delivers a better actual viewing experience than many TVs with more impressive measurements. Current market conditions. Something important is happening in the TV market right now. In early 2026, that's creating both opportunities and risk for buyers. We're seeing dramatic price drops of $300 to $600 on many mid to high-end models, driven by excess inventory of LCD and mini LED panels sitting in warehouses because manufacturers overestimated demand. Companies like LG Display and Samsung Display are sitting on huge stockpiles of panels that need to move, which means aggressive pricing. Brands are also accelerating their model refresh cycles. TVs that were flagships 6 months ago are being replaced by new models with barely any meaningful improvements, and those older flagships need clearance. The Samsung QN90C became the QN90D with almost no real changes, but the QN90C immediately became a clearance item. What this means for buyers is that there are genuine opportunities right now if you know what to look for. Models that were expensive flagships a year ago are now available at mid-range prices. But it also means you need to be careful about buying the newest models at launch prices because they'll probably drop significantly within a few months. Final thoughts and recommendations. After 2 weeks of intensive testing, here's what I learned. You cannot trust ratings and reviews blindly. You have to dig deeper into what specific problems reviewers mention and whether those problems would actually bother you. Specifications and measurements don't tell the whole story. A TV with impressive specs can deliver a worse viewing experience than a TV with modest specs but better image processing. Real-world performance in your actual room with your actual content matters way more than performance in ideal conditions. If you have a bright living room, OLED might disappoint you. If you watch mostly dark, dramatic content, mini LED with aggressive local dimming might drive you crazy with blooming. Match the TV technology to your actual use case. If I had to make one single recommendation based on everything I tested, it would be this. For most people in most living rooms watching most types of content, the LG C3 OLED at current prices, around $1,400 for 65 inches is probably the best overall choice. It's not perfect, but it delivers excellent performance across the widest range of content and viewing conditions. If you have a very bright room or watch primarily sports and daytime content, go with the TCL QM8 instead. If you're a serious film enthusiast who prioritizes accurate, natural image quality, spend the extra money on the Sony X90L. And critically, avoid the Hisense U8K despite its impressive specifications. Avoid the Samsung QN90C despite its flagship status. And avoid the Samsung S90D unless you have a dark dedicated theater room. If you found this testing helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment letting me know which TV you're considering or what your experience has been. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your TV shopping.